Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Barry Gleeson, strategic coach, advisor, and we're going to talk about scaling up a company and preparing it for exit. Man, thank you for being on the show today.
My pleasure, Ron. Thanks for having me.
Let's just jump right in. Like, how did you get into this space? What's your origin story? Kind of can tell us how you got started.
Well, it's not consecutive, that's for sure. I spent 15 years in corporate America working for a defense contractor, and I wore many hats at that company. Uh, Without that background, I probably couldn't be doing what I'm doing today. So it gave me a really big appreciation for how business is run in a very sophisticated environment. But I frankly, Ron, got choked on the politics, and I left and I went to work for a vendor of ours, and I became a sales guy. And I sold material handling equipment. I'm in Missouri, so covered half the state, and enjoyed that and did well with it. Did quite well. And then the owner of the business, third generation, approached me and asked me if I wanted to be operations manager, and I took that role, and then soon became general manager and vice president of the company. And in the process of that, I met a gentleman that was a franchisee for the Alternative Board, which is an international franchise organization for peer executive groups and executive coaching. And I was intrigued with that. And after my time with the material handling company, I started on my own. So it was 8 years with that company. And I started my own business working with privately held businesses in '04. And I've been doing that ever since. And I've seen a lot and learned a lot along the way. So my focus now is still working with privately held businesses, but really in the spirit of helping them get to an exit point in their business. All of us will exit someday, some way. I want to make that transaction the most it can be. So that's how I got here. So the purpose of my business is really to help business owners have a better life. And so anything and everything that contributes to them running a better business, having the right people, doing the right things, scaling it to where it's attractive to a buyer, and even short of a sale, just having the benefit of a business that's healthy versus struggling with it was very appealing to me. And as I did that, I saw that most of these owners were struggling, and it wasn't great. They were working long hours and making sacrifices that are mostly unknown by the general public, and I was very sympathetic to that, and so I wanted to help. And then the fourth pillar is cash. Do you have enough cash to fuel your own growth, or are you cash strapped? And obvious, many things contribute to that. So at the highest level, having the right people, having an effective strategy, being able to execute, have the discipline of that execution, and then managing cash, those are the fundamentals. Do an anonymous survey of all employees, every one of them, truck driver up to the CEO, and three simple questions. What do we start doing? What do we stop doing? And what do we keep doing?
Oh, yeah.
And then I throw in the fourth, and the fourth question is there anything else you think we need to think about as a leadership team? And the input is staggering. And of all the companies scaling up worldwide clients, communication is the number one issue in most businesses. And I see that day in, day out. And the guys that are on the front line know what's going on. And if you're not asking for their input, you're missing opportunity. They can see things that executive teams can't see. They're just not working the day to day hands on like that. They're putting out other fires.
You and I both know the time frame it takes to really prepare a company for a successful, profitable exit. But let's talk about what goes into some of that from a team perspective and from your perspective as an advisor. How you walk somebody through that preparation.
Sure. Well, I distinguish succession planning from exit planning. So the leadership side of the business is the succession planning, and of course, exit is leaving the business. But I think the number one thing that buyers look at when they look at business is the strength of the management team. Um, the business has to run without the founder or the CEO, day-to-day operator. If anybody is in that mode, that's that by itself. If you're running a company and you're hands-on and you don't have a lieutenant that can take the charge when you're away, that's a problem. That's the biggest detriment of selling a business, because the buyers don't want to do that. Now, in rare cases, they have a management team in place, they can absorb it, and that's all fine and good. But for the business sizes that I've worked with, which are generally under 100 million, that's not the case. You've got to have, as you said earlier, a dashboard or some way of gauging where the business is and
Hmm.
where, what's vital. And again, back to the alignment, it needs to be aligned to some kind of strategy of what you can do well, not just do. I've got a client right now that they're very diversified and they think that's a big strength, but in their sales side of the business, they're thin. They don't have the right resources to cover all the different segments that they're trying to cover. And so they're not effective at generating revenue to support all four divisions, frankly. And that's a real problem for them. And they think it's like, well, all of this plays with our customers at some point. And I challenge them and ask, well, are you great at all four of these? Or are you just doing them because you think it's a value? And so trying to provoke them to think about, are we focused on what we do best and what we make the most money at? There's
Hmm.
in many companies, there's not single point. There's multiple names. So if you take a list of functions or processes, and most companies don't have their processes even defined, who owns that? Who's the champion behind that? And in a smaller company, the CEOs or the founder is wearing multiple hats, and that's just the nature of the beast, and that's fine. The job there is to get them to wear less hats as they grow. But in a more developed company, that still exists. And so there's confusion on execution and who owns what. On the processes, it's cross functional. So there's multiple departments involved with any given process. And if there's not a champion for that, then everyone expects somebody else to deal with it. So, from a structural foundation point of view, Brian, I think it's vital that processes have to be defined in a company. I wouldn't go so far as to say step one, two, three, four, because I think that stifles creativity. I'd rather give them guide rails and say,
Hmm.
here's the goal and here's the parameters of which you can operate and go figure out a best way to get there.